You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to Mr. Darrin Scholl today. He is an individual I got connected to over on the Facebook platform. And a little background about Darrin. He's been a paranormal investigator for 30 years and a cryptid investigator for the past 6 years. And we're going to be talking about really what's been happening during those 6 years. Welcome to the show, Darrin. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, let's start here. So when you say, just maybe a little background. So when you say paranormal investigator, are you, for the 30 years, are you the kind of guy that you've been going out and investigated houses that are haunted and things like that, just so we're on the same page as you?
Basically, what I do on that for the last 30 years is houses, cemeteries, locations in the wilderness, pretty much wherever I get a call to go to check things out and try to help the homeowners feel a little bit more at ease with their circumstances and the situation. So,
absolutely. And from what I would gather, and maybe from what I know a little bit behind the scenes, it sounds like there was something that happened that kind of got your focus to go over to the cryptid side a bit.
the funny thing is, me and my team went up to this old abandoned homestead. The funny thing is, I was stopped in a supermarket and some people around town happen to know who I am and what I do. And it was a hunter, and he said that he was up at the old homestead and he had seen a woman standing in the field calling his name. And he didn't feel very comfortable with that, so he ended up getting out of that situation. So I talked to my crew and I said, hey, we've never been up there. Why don't we go up there? And it sounds like it's a hot spot. Let's go figure this out. And so we go up, we did our initial investigation, and we had talked to the local historical society, and they said the cemetery is down the hill a little ways. And of course, the cemetery's paranormal investigators, hey, let's go talk to them. These people were treated very horrible up here, and they were pretty much abandoned. So they've got to have a story to tell. And while we were looking for the cemetery is when we stumbled. And stumbled is the only appropriate word, is we stumbled upon a family of Bigfoot, and it just took off like a shot, and that was the start of our cryptid investigations.
Wow, Darrin, that's intense. And I know a lot of listeners right now are like, family Bigfoot, that's awesome. Where is it? So we can say it's in Oregon, right?
Because we don't want to exactly give out the exact location, because over the last 6 years, we've been able to go back during certain months, and we are successfully locating and tracking these things. They have a path. These Bigfoot, these Sasquatch, this pod, this family, they have a cycle. They have a pattern that we've been able to track, and we're very successful at every year that when we go back up during these months and during these times, we are running into them. Now, I'm not saying that we're all friendly and we don't name them or anything. We're encountering them every single year like clockwork.
Some fascinating stuff. So when you say family or pod, which I would assume is the name we're using for the group of them, what kind of individuals and types are you seeing in this pod?
What we found the one day that started this whole thing off was we come across this little meadow in this little valley, and we're up on the ridge a little bit, and we're being loud. We're being your normal hiker. We're just hiking through the woods. talking loud, just being obnoxious and joking around. And we're like, okay, we're going to go find the cemetery. And we go to where we were told the cemetery is. Oh, yeah, it's over here. Here's your coordinates. We get down to where it is, and we're like, okay, there's nothing here. And one of my guys looks down. We're probably about 85, 90 feet away from them. And he looks across and he's like, there's something down there. And we've got thermal cameras and we got everything else. So one of my guys with the thermal camera gets them on thermal camera. We've got one hiding behind a tree, and we've got that video on our YouTube page where you can see a bright, hot object hiding behind a tree peeking around. And what it was, there was 2 females and 2 juveniles. We could tell that they were females. And so we're watching them and they're watching us. I think it was more of a situation of we all caught each other off guard. And they were just hiding. They were hiding behind trees and peeking around. And we're staring at them and they're staring at us. And we got the feeling that they just expected the crazy humans just to walk on past and not really paying any attention. And then they were just stuck there. And while we're sitting watching them, I mean, their hair was just like a dark black. And then they were about 7 feet tall for the 2 females. And then the juveniles were probably about 4.5 feet tall. As we're staring at them, one of my guys goes, hey, we ought to whoop at them and see if they'll whoop back. So we started whooping. That's when we got a return whoop from behind us. And when we turned to take a look and be like, okay, what's behind us? We turned back around and we're like, okay, we can't see anything, but this is kind of getting a little crazy. Let's focus on the females and the juveniles and focus on what we can see. By that point, they had that little moment to take off from the valley, and that's where we lost contact with them.
You had 2 females, 2 juveniles, and then you heard something behind you, correct?
Correct. Because what we've been finding out is normally you've got, in our pod, the big male has a central area of this wider area. Because we've done some interviews with people who have seen, we call them the silverback, borrowing a term from gorillas. And we've interviewed a bunch of people in the next town over, and they say, oh, yeah, he comes around, he gets in the garbage cans, he's by himself, and he's just a big 9-footer. But we have had interactions with other males. So we're believing that those would be more the teenagers, the younger males that aren't exactly the big alpha, that seem to be protecting the females and the kids. We've had rocks thrown at us, and we've been hit with that stench, which we're thinking is maybe like a skunk response. I'm gonna have to fast forward a year here. We see the females, juveniles. We get out of there. We're all hyped up. We're excited. We give it a year, go about our business. The following year, the next April, we go back up and we start finding like these nests. Something has pushed down these trees and filled them with ferns. And we started going to Bigfoot conferences and trying to learn everything that we could. And there's one up in the Olympic Peninsula where they've been finding these big hand-woven nests filled with huckleberries.
Mm-hmm.
And their research says that huckleberries have a medicinal quality for childbirth and motherhood. Our altitude is too low for huckleberries, but bracken ferns grow plentiful. And if you look up medicinal qualities of a bracken fern, it also has childbirth and motherhood type ailments that they can fix. It's a good medicinal property. That's year 2. We start finding these nests everywhere. We get rocks thrown at us, and it's a bigger male. And it's stalking us. It's walking in the creek next to the trail there. And we stop and we're talking, and we get hit with that awful smell. That's just, We tried to describe how bad it is, but it's just this pungent, just bad. But it didn't linger long. It just hit us like a skunk would spray you. So you're aware that, hey, I need to get out of here. So we kind of looked around, and I saw two branches from another tree be pulled down and then something pull itself up over the bank. I didn't get a great view of it, but it was definitely something large pulling itself up over the bank, get away from us. So yeah, we ended up leaving that day as quickly as we could.
I'm curious, why was it that you waited a whole year before going back up there?
We were still doing the paranormal stuff pretty much full time, and we had other cases and everything else lined up, and then we get back around towards January, and we had gone up to our local Squatch Fest, and then we started talking about it. We're like, you know what? We need to go back out there. And also, we needed to have time to learn what we're doing and how we're doing it, and talk to people that do it full time and get the research in, because we're used to sitting in an abandoned building at 3 o'clock in the morning talking to a broken radio. And now it's like, okay, now we've got to change our way of thinking to, we're going to be out in the wilderness, and how are we going to do this, and how are we going to approach this?
I think that's really smart of you. A lot of people would probably just be like, all right, let's hit it hard, and not take the time to get that foundation in there. Hats off to you guys. Is this a thing where you are trying to get footprint cast as well, and try to get any evidence of any kind when you're up there in the area?
We actually have pulled out 3 different footprints in the first, okay, you can't count the first year, but the next 3 years after that, we've pulled out footprints. We go with the basic logic of, okay, everything that's living needs water, it needs food, and it needs shelter. We track the water sources. Where's the streams, where the creeks, the rivers, what's close to here, what's the food supply like. Everything's going to need to eat, and it's going to need water eventually sometime during the day. We've got to put ourselves in that mentality of, okay, well, these are the things we're looking for. If the question that myself and my team ask ourselves when we enter a situation is, if we were stuck in the woods, where's the food, where's the water that we would be able to survive off of? It's been a lot of homework on our end of, but like I said, if we're ghost hunting, you're in a building, you're out of the elements, you got a water bottle, you got a snack on you or something like that. Wilderness survival, you got to take it into effect. Know your weather, know the weather turns, especially up on these mountains that we go on to. Yeah, it's just been a lot of education before we started rolling out to do it pretty much monthly.
Okay, gotcha. So now for the last few years, it sounds like you're going up there every month, which is awesome. Has there been a time when you've been able to get a really good look of these Sasquatch that you have up there? You mentioned that you were able to see one go up the side of a bank, maybe with a tree, but have there been any other sightings that you've been fortunate enough to have?
That was the initial, but all we had was a thermal camera. The one with the male pulling himself up over the bank, we were not rolling any cameras. So after that one, we started buying GoPros, body cameras, outfitting ourselves out to the extreme. Over the last couple years, I'm going to stress this, I can't stress it enough, we are not friendly with them. We have been run out. We've had rocks thrown at us if we get too close. We don't name them. I know some people who run into these things all the time, they name them, and okay, let me go 3 years back. We were going up, local area, it's April again. We were not rolling on anything. We had no cameras rolling. I had one of my team go down a trail that we had never been down before. And me and the other guy were sitting there. And we're actually charging up our GoPros, a little solar battery thing. And we're sitting there and we're having lunch and we're just talking. And we look across into the swampy area. And there's a juvenile male peeking around a tree at us. And I'm like, of course they're coming out right now. They know that everything's plugged in. And that one, no, we didn't get anything on camera, but we did get a good visual of him staring at us.
Gotcha. On the show, I get a lot of different types of sighting reports, and you have people that see them, what they saw looked very human, or what they saw looked maybe more ape-like. Did it fit either of those, or was it maybe something completely different than those two?
This pod, this family that we have been following, they've got more of a gorilla face with a flattened nose, dark hair, skin color it's not real like chimpanzee, and it's not gorilla dark. It's like an in between those two.
Gotcha. Did it have a certain shape to its head at all?
They got that classic cone on the top of the head there. That's about the only way I can describe it. Is it just has that Gimlin Patterson film coned head.
Gotcha. This is something I've never experienced before, but you mentioned that you guys have experienced, and that's you've been run out of the area at least once. Can you walk me through what it's like to be run out of an area by, I guess, at least one Sasquatch would be involved?
It's the times that we get run out are the times we get entirely too close to a nest or a feeding ground. The last time we got run out, we ended up finding a kill zone. There was just a mass of bones just spread out over this little area. There's an elk refuge up in this area too. Something had killed a couple elk and just ripped them apart. And as we're up there, and we're trying to document it, and that's actually where we pulled another footprint, was right next to one of the bodies. Some of us started feeling very sick. We wanted to say it was infrasound, but we can't really document that. But then there was the rocks being thrown at us. Started out just small rocks going through the trees, so you kind of hear something hitting trees next to us or falling at our feet, and then it's small, and then we kind of started to move a little bit quicker, and we're like, okay, quick, take pictures, take video. The footprint was still drying. We're like, okay, we'll leave, we'll come back, and we'll get it in an hour or something. And as we're leaving the woods and heading down this trail, the rocks are getting a little bit more frequent, a little bit bigger. We're hearing growls behind us, so it's now become more vocal of, you guys need to leave. Your time is up. You need to leave. You were somewhere you weren't supposed to be. So we ended up getting chased probably a good quarter mile back to the truck and just continually having things thrown at us. When we got to where the truck is, there's a little creek off to the left-hand side of the trail. And you could hear something splashing through the creek, really making it obvious that I'm over here. You need to be aware. You need to get out. So we ended up loading up in the truck, getting a majority of everybody out safe and sound. And we came back with just three of us to go retrieve the footprint real quick.
What was that like going back to retrieve the footprint? What were you guys experiencing? Did things rev up when you went back into that area, or were you able to get in and out pretty quick?
We kind of ran it. My guys basically parked the truck and they ended up running down to it, pulling it out of the ground, throwing it in a rain poncho, and then running back out as quickly as they could. I did not go with them to go back and get the footprint. I was trying to deal with getting the rest of the crew calmed down a little bit. And they said when they parked and entered the trail, They said there was no birds, there was no chipmunks, there was no sound. They just felt like they were watched and they were stalked the entire time. They said that they just flat out ran it. Just no cameras, no body cameras, no packs, no nothing. Just get in, get out. Can't leave this behind. It's a good print. So
That's really intense. What dimensions are the tracks that you've been able to pull out of this area?
the smallest one was 14 and a half inches long by like about 3 to 4 inches wide. And the longest one we pulled out was 16 and a half feet and about almost 5 inches wide.
Gotcha. So 16 and a half inches by 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Have you guys ever used any of your paranormal investigation equipment in this same area to see if it registers at all?
We've tried to use some stuff. Our spirit boxes really don't give off a lot of anything. The EMF meters, there's 2 areas that we get a little bit of a spike to it. But we're not, depending on the type of year is when we try to do more of the sit down in the woods and just focus on things, because we've noticed that there's a pattern to these woods on when things come and when they go. Now, like all the aggressive males go further up the mountain in April and May. The females happen to leave the mid part of the mountain June, July, and August. And then June, July, and August, we don't go up there because there's a whole different creature that likes to inhabit that area that we don't like to deal with.
Is that something we're able to talk about at all, or is that just subject we're not really going to get into?
Oh, we can discuss it.
Okay.
For the past 3 years in the area in the summertime, June, July, and August, we have been actively stalked, chased, witnessed Dogmen. Yeah, there's a nice little pack of them. It started out with 2, and we were stalked out of there by that one. We had left up game cameras 3 years ago because we're like, okay, we haven't really seen much in the summertime. Let's put up game cameras, leave them up there a month, and we'll come back and try to figure out what's going on with this area in the summertime. Why is all the activity for squatching just dead June, July, and August? There's, every time we go up there, there's nothing going on. So it's like, let's put up game cameras. We had actually ended up going back up to the old haunted homestead, do a paranormal thing. And it was like, okay, on our way back down, we've got game cameras. Let's go in and grab them and see what we got. They've been up there a month. Me and my buddy James go in to where the game cameras are, and we get up to where they are, and we've got everybody at the truck with the bionic ears and sound amplifiers, and one of them is like radioing us and saying, "I'm hearing breathing in the woods." So I'm like, okay, we'll make this quick. Maybe this is going to be one of the hostile encounters where they're going to chase us. Well, grab the game camera, and I happen to look up into the woods where the person's pointing to. That's right there. That's when I see a 7-foot tall bipedal canine. Got kind of like a German Shepherd head, and it's staring at me. So I grab the camera and I back out of there. I'm not taking my eyes off it. It's watching me. I'm watching it. I go back to back with my buddy James down on the trailhead, and I'm like, dude, we need to get out of here. There's I'm still staring this thing dead in the eyes. And he's like staring at the creek on the other side of the trail, and he's like, there's one over there. James has a pistol, and he draws it. I am not armed. All I have is a little hunting knife. So we start backing out of there real carefully, quietly. I'm still keeping eyes on mine. He's looking down, and he's looking at it. We get in the truck and we get out of there as quickly as we can. The next year we went up there and we're just like, okay, beginning of June should be okay. No, it wasn't okay. We're stuck where we found these tracks. We're trying to find these tracks, and we couldn't cast them. They look like Bigfoot tracks, but they're just the plant material underneath all the trees were just pine needles and everything else. We're like, yeah, we're not going to be able to cast this. Let's try and track it down and see what we can find that we can cast. And I stayed up on the road because I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay up here. I'm going to keep an eye out for things. We wear these shooting earmuffs that amplify all the exterior sound. And I hear branches cracking behind me. And I am armed at this point because we're like, okay, we're getting towards Dogman season. We should have something handy. And I turn around and I see a Dogman peering out from behind a tree. And then I hear a sound off to the right of him. And there's another Dogman. And then there's a third Dogman that pops up, and a little bit smaller. Definitely a young'un. The guys come back up, and I have not drawn any weapons. I'm just staring at these things. I'm like, okay, we need to go. He's like looking in the woods, and he goes, okay, I see that one off to the left. I go, uh-huh. And then look over about 20 feet, and then another 30 feet off of that one. And so he's eyeballing, he's noticing. Our third guy, we've been finding this, we can only estimate that it's a Bigfoot piling trees up. It's like one of those big teepee style things that Bigfoot seem to be making from time to time. So he's like, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to check to see the progress on that one, because it was 3 sticks. Then it was like 40 sticks. And he's like, I want to go see the condition that it's in. So I'm like, all right, just make it real quick. Then we got to get in the truck and get out of here. He gets back there and he says, there were 3 more things sitting around the teepee. And they were laying in the bush. And he's like, I could hear them. I could hear them breathing. They were snarling. So we got in the truck and we went further up the hill where all the Squatch were. When we came back down, because we got to take the same road in and the same road out, we were trying to be funny and decided, okay, somebody had set up some targets at this little pullout for target practice. Why don't we stop and we'll do some target practice, try to make ourselves feel a little bit better. I think that was pretty much a mistake, because we get back in the truck, we shoot some guns and hop back in the truck, and we start back down the hill. And my buddy Josh is in the back seat of the truck, and he's looking out the right-hand side, and he goes, there's something running beside the truck. And, well, James is driving, and he's trying to pay attention, and I roll down the window to try to turn around and get a better look at this thing. And I can't see any details on it, but something is definitely running beside the truck, and it's clocking us at 25 miles an hour and keeping up. Yeah, when I had the window down, you could get that noxious smell of rotten meat and pet urine, and it was just ugly.
My goodness. So that puts everything in a whole different light. Now you're not just dealing with a pod of Bigfoot or a family group of Bigfoot in the area. You've also have this completely different cryptid to deal with. So to make sure I understand it, so you're saying that the Bigfoot leave during certain months, and then the Dogman individuals, or they come into the same area. Okay.
Now the funny thing is, before we even dealt with the Dogmen, I was wearing a Bigfoot shirt, and I was at the local Fred Meyer's, and I was doing the self-checkout, and was just trying to get in, get out, get home. And there was a lady at the self-checkout next to mine. She saw my shirt. And she goes, hey, I like your shirts. Did you happen to know there's some Bigfoot in the backwoods here? And I was like, oh, yeah, we've been tracking them for a few years, and we're trying to understand them. So I go back to putting my stuff, and then I'm just chit-chatting. And then she says something, and she goes, yeah, the Dogmen and the Bigfoot are always fighting for territory up by my farm, and they are always making such a loud racket at night. And it didn't click right away, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then she was done with her stuff, and she goes, all right, have a good day. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, wait a minute, process. Okay, I need to talk to this woman. Trying to finish packing all my stuff, pay as quickly as I can, run out the store, try to follow her. And now I'm an investigator. I need to know more. Where's this farm? Where's this ranch? What time of the year is it that these battles are going on? If you got a wrestling match going on for free, you want a front row seat. But I couldn't find her. Like I said, what we've been finding is it seems to be that the Squatch seem to be going up and down and over this mountain into the next valley because there's a river on the backside of this mountain. So they seem to be doing springtime on my side. And then summer, they go further up and then up and over for the fish run. Now, the Dogmen were trying to figure out what their pattern is. We actually interviewed a lady this summer. We went to this little county park, just off out of the way. You know, there's a legend of a horse thief who was hung, and people see this guy today. They'll be camping out, and they'll see a man and his dog walk around the park, and it's when they turn on lights, there's nobody there. So we're like, okay, let's go out and we'll investigate this one. We didn't really pack for Bigfoot, didn't pack for Dogman. We just took ghost gear, and we're like, okay, we're just going to do this. As we're trying to find the hanging tree, and we had talked to the Historical Society, and they said, oh, yeah, you go in the park, you take this trail, you go back 500 feet, and there's the tree. We start getting stalked by something, and we're like, okay, this is weird. People have seen Squatch over here, and this seems to be the heart of their territory. Maybe it's a Squatch. We don't see much. Just we can hear it around us in the woods. We get back out. We're like, okay, do our little thing, get ready to wrap up, and we're walking toward the car, and one of the ladies that's been camping there for a while, she comes over and she goes, oh, you guys ghost hunters? I saw your gear on your table. And we're like, yeah. You know, we also do Bigfoot, and there's been some reports of Bigfoot out here. She goes, oh, I've been here for about 2 weeks. I haven't seen any Bigfoot, but there is this giant dog and she puts a hand out. She goes, yeah, it's about this tall at the shoulder, and she's about 5'2", and it's about 5 feet. And she goes, yeah, it comes around on all fours. It gets into my dog's food at night. I have to chase it away. It wants to try to get into the tent. And we're just like, oh, this is great. And then we talk to the camp host, and they're like, oh, yeah, it's just a giant dog. It's just wandering around, and it's, you know, what dog is really 5 feet tall and just roaming free? We're trying to figure out the next step on this whole thing is what's the pattern? Where are they going? How are they going? How are they coming and going? Why do the Bigfoot go further up the mountain during a certain time of year? And do they feel safer? These things we got to try to figure out.
Did you say that the camp hosts were rather like whatever about the whole deal? Like it's no big deal?
Yeah, they said it's been hanging out for the last year or two, and it doesn't attack anybody. They'll see it 4, 5, 6 times a day, just walking through the camp. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Then when they described it, they're like, it looks like a wolf, but it's about 5 feet at the shoulders, and it's a dark gray with black streaks. we try to look up dog breeds that have black streaks and are that tall, and it's like we're really striking out a little bit. We were like, does it look like a Great Dane? Is it an Afghan? And they're like, it just looks like a mutt. Looks like a combination of a bunch.
Incredible. Man, so knowing that you've got the two things going on, I'm sure you guys are protected in different ways when you're going up there.
Yeah, most definitely. I was asked on a different podcast, when you're fully armed to the teeth, how are the Bigfoot responding to that? Again, I don't want to say we're friendly and everything. We're on certain terms, but since we've been packing in firearms, when it's in the April, May months, March, April, May. Okay, for example, this past May, we did what we call the sit. We just like, okay, it's April, we're going to get in ghillie suits, we're going to go and we're going to park ourselves along this ridge at 20-foot intervals. You know, we all got cameras. We're like, okay, we know that they're here. Experience and habit and routine have just said that, yes, they are going to be in this area at this time. We're strapped for pistols on our sides and in ghillie suits. And we're just hunkered down, like I said, about 30 feet in between us down this riverbed. And this is another one of the things, it's kind of hard to define what it is we heard. And a bunch of us had heard it. So we're in ghillie suits, we're laying on the bank, just looking like logs. We start hearing this cooing. And that's the only word we can use to describe it is it's a high cooing. Like you would coo to a child. You're trying to calm down a child a little bit. Ooh, come on. The best way I can describe it. But it kept getting closer and closer. And then it's right underneath the ridge underneath me. I'm up a little bit higher on this overhead. And we didn't feel too threatened by it. I think I was a little bit more spooked that it was right underneath me. And it was cooing. And I was like, you know what? It's right underneath this. It's probably about 3 feet underneath me. I think it's time to go now because it's getting real close. But we're just going through the motion of these things are they know when we show up. Even if we descent ourselves, ghillie suits, the minute that truck stops and it's a big old diesel, everything in the neighborhood knows that we're arriving. We don't draw pistols during the Squatch season. We don't even reach for them. It's primarily during the summertime months that we're a little bit more jumpy.
When you've been sitting or doing the sit up there, have there been any types of other interactions that have happened between you, your team, and whatever creatures are out there at the time?
The reactions with the Bigfoot seem to be that, last time we sat there for 2.5 hours and then we got the cooing. Some people will hear branches breaking and something moving slowly. There might be a little pebble that's thrown at us just to see if we'll react. I think if we are posing no threat and we're just playing like we're a log, 9 out of 10 times they'll throw something and see if you react. I think it's like a game to the juveniles at a certain point of, oh yeah, there's humans over there. Let's throw rocks, see if they'll freak out and run. Normally it's just you'll have a few things hit a tree next to you. You'll get like maybe a little whoop, a little howl in the background. Once they know that you're not going to react and play, then they just seem to just go about their business.
Has anyone on the team ever checked for radiation levels in that area with like an RF meter, or been affected in weird physical ways after being up there?
One of our guys has had constant vertigo. He doesn't come up a lot anymore just because it just seemed to affect him a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
As for radiation meters, that is actually on our list of things to pick up for these things. Now, there's been vertigo, there's been feeling just lightheaded from time to time, but as long as if it's during the time that we would normally find a nest, we try to avoid those areas because, like I said, they have a pattern, they have a routine that they're going to be in these zones at certain times of the year inside their nest. So we stay clear of the nest during March and April. We don't go into that part of the swamp, that part of the mountain. We try to basically just give them the room to breathe and do their thing. And I would say, and it's just our theory, mind you, that when the females are giving birth, that the older males are working sentry work. So they're the ones that are out in the outer perimeter protecting the mothers and the newborns. And they'll normally throw rocks at us. Again, small rocks. Let us know, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Then they'll get a little bit more intense. But as long as we stay out of those zones, we seem to get along pretty fine. That they're okay with us. They're okay with us being there as long as we're not in the crucial areas that we need to be. If that makes any sense.
No, it absolutely does. And it's on your list already, but I would recommend definitely getting some kind of RF meter. I think it's a thing that is definitely being talked about in the community where there's Joe Perdue out of West Virginia. They found the actual radioactive Bigfoot footprint out there in that state. And I think it's something that needs to be a little bit looked into more. So I'm glad that you guys are doing that, or planning to do that for sure.
Yeah, every year seems to be a growing moment for the team and myself. The first year 6 years ago when we first encountered them, the only cameras we had were our phones. You're only going to be able to do so much with that. And then we've grown into, okay, let's learn from everybody else, go to these Bigfoot festivals and conferences and learn from the people that have been doing it for a while. We've had the distinct honor to talk to Dr. Meldrum for the last couple of years and pick his brain and say, okay, this is what we're coming up against. What would you think about this one? So, with his passing, we've kind of lost a resource. It's like we don't know everything about these things. We're still learning about them. And one question that's been popped to me was, if you've been run out of the area and chased by dogmen, why do you keep going back? And it's like, we want to know. It's the same thing that drives us to go into these haunted buildings and stay there until 6 o'clock in the morning. It's like, I grew up on a Patterson-Gimlin film, and my grandmother was from Arkansas, so there was always the legends and the myths, and I grew up with all that. But Bigfoot was never really the goal, I guess you would say. It's always been the ghosts. I was just like, I'm just going to stick with the paranormal film, and that's where I'm going to be. And then seeing the two females and the two juveniles, it's like, now I need to know more about these things. So it's, like I said, every single year we're learning something new, we're writing it down, we're putting it in our arsenal and going forward to the next year. And okay, now how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Like I said, we've been casting footprints when we find them. We're getting better at that. The first one was a very horrible cast, but it's like, we want to know more about these things. We just did an interview a couple months back about a person in the next town over And he gave us the exact location of the big old silverback. He's like, yep, if you come out during these months, he sits up on the hill and everybody sees him.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he said he had damage to his barn. He said one night he'd walked out and leveled out a 12 gauge and hit 2 blasts in the air. You know, something was out with his chickens and he leveled out 2 blasts to scare it away. And the next couple nights, something beat the crap out of his barn and put old big holes in it. So we got to look at the barn and there was big old footprints right next to where this thing was just beating holes in the wall. It's like, all right. And he was like, yo, it's here all the time. It likes to come in. He's had to do something new with his chickens and make sure that it doesn't get his chickens all the time. And he's like, oh yeah, you go talk to so and so, and they're gonna tell you the same thing. Their goats go missing.
This is absolutely wild. Have you talked to any locals that have been able to get like any photographs or video of when they're being messed with on their property?
9 out of 10 times it's early in the morning and they're not really thinking cameras. They're going for shotguns and rifles because they're ranchers, they're farmers, their livestock is being threatened, and their main concern at that point is, I need to go out and protect my livestock from getting taken. We've talked to them, hey, you know what, maybe if you put up some outdoor security cameras and if you capture anything, you can let us get a copy of that. And these are diehard country people, just they're out in the middle of kind of nowhere, and they're just, it's an older generation, and they'd rather shoot in the air with 12 gauge than stop and take a picture.
No, that makes total sense. Darrin, this has been a great conversation. I do have one last question for you. And have you or anyone on your team ever had any form of what you feel is communication with either the Bigfoot or the Dogman that are in this area?
I would say the only range of communication we've had was the cooing, because it made us feel like it was trying to gauge us on how we were doing, because we had rocks thrown at us and we weren't moving, and we were there for 2.5 hours just laying there. So we feel the cooing was just like if you saw like a hurt dog, hey buddy, hey, what's going on, buddy? We feel that was communication, but nothing, no psychic impressions, no, I don't know how else to put that. We just feel that the cooing was, hey, we're just gonna check on you, and you haven't moved in a while. Dogmen, on the other hand, those will growl at us, and I can't say anything psychic, just a lot of fear.
It makes sense, and thank you for answering that. Well, Darrin, I appreciate you coming on the show today. It's a pretty cool one because it is definitely an ongoing investigation from what I would imagine. You guys are still going. There's no end in sight for this, I would imagine.
I certainly hope not, because I need to know more. My team needs to know more, and we've been willing to take more seasoned professionals out with us to get a better handle on what's going on. We put it out there towards other people that deal in Squatch and have many more years of experience, and the offer always stands to anybody that wants to go out. It's like, yeah, come out. We know more about this than we do. We're young in this profession. We'll give you a time and a place to meet us, and we'll take you.
That's awesome. At the end of our conversation here, you did mention a little bit that it sounds like you do have a YouTube channel. Is there a way then that people can keep up to date with what you are doing? Are you doing videos about this investigation? Anything like that?
Yeah, the YouTube channel has a lot of the Squatch videos, our outdoor stuff, our paranormal stuff. It's just everything. It's just youtube.com/DBK Investigations.
That's great. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes for the episode so people can check that out. But Darrin, thank you so much for coming on the show, and definitely keep us in the loop with what happens in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Before we wrap this episode, I want to say something directly to a very specific group of listeners. If you're in the military, any branch or forces, and if you've seen something that no one can explain, or if you're a national park ranger or forestry worker who's been told to stay quiet, or if you're a pilot who's seen something strange down on the ground, or if you're with the FBI, a federal agency, or working intelligence, and you stumbled upon something you're not allowed to talk about, and if you're a firefighter, paramedic, or search and rescue responder who's heard screams or found tracks that didn't make sense, if you're in the logging industry, on a remote oil field, or a trucker with government contracts, and you've had something happen that you've never told a soul, and if you're a biologist, a wildlife specialist, or a field researcher under contract who has found evidence you're not allowed to report, if you're a pastor, a missionary, or someone on a spiritual retreat, and you saw something that shook your faith, or if you work in the shadows, CIA, NSA, or anything with clearance, and you've seen what the public hasn't, then I want to talk to you. Even if it's anonymous, you can reach me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. The world needs to hear what you've been forced to carry alone, and you're not alone. You've got the story. We've got the mic. See you in the woods. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all of that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.